For this video, I want to discuss Alejandro pertaining to his masculinity and how he fits the conversation of gender roles. He appeared on the 3rd and 5th seasons of Total Drama called Total Drama World Tour and Total Drama All-Stars. Like the last video, I'm going to start off by analyzing Alejandro's character design and outfits. Alejandro has long, shoulder-length hair that is dark brown and appears to look flowy. Of course, this design was made to play on the Latin lover and Fabio tropes, both being used to heighten up his sex appeal. His eyebrows are well groomed, has a perfectly arched nose, which is used to heighten up his masculinity and intensity, and has a small goatee, which is used to represent that he's a bit more worldly and mature than the others around him. What is interesting is that he has green eyes, which is not only a rare type of eye color, which about 2% of the world has, but it's even more rare for a man who has a lot of traits of a mestizo male. I believe his eyes were made to be green due to it being so rare, while making him more captivating and mysterious. What's interesting about his eye color is that most people who have this color comes from Scotland and Ireland, and it's made clear that he does not have any ties to those areas. When you look at his outfit, you see him wear a necklace of a bow. Of course, this represents his Latin heritage, but also represents his intensity, aggressiveness, spiciness, and a dark personality underneath the beautiful surface. He is wearing a red shirt with a collar that is unbuttoned, so you could definitely see his defined pectorals and a white undershirt underneath it. His sleeves are barely below his armpits. These show that his muscular features are heavily focused on, so you could see him as very attractive. Alejandro has a great shape and is in great shape, which he likes to show off. He also has 2 bracelets, one on each wrist, showing that he likes to decorate himself. His shirt is dark red, which is his favorite color, which represents intensity. His pants are a darker green, as he wears a belt and has fancy boots, which he is shown to love in All-Stars. Everything about his outfit is meant for us to see that he is very attractive, fit, cultured, and is high-fashioned. Alejandro decides to not wear his shirt several times throughout the series, and there's very little reasons for it, since it's not like he's swimming in some of these moments. He uses his chiseled torso as a seductive method, and he does it because he truly likes being objectified sexually and ogled at. There are times where he ties his hair into a ponytail as well, which is of course done to perpetuate his sexy Latin lover archetype, which he fully embraces. Regarding his actual swimwear, Alejandro is only wearing a very tight red Speedo, easily being the most revealing male swimwear out of everyone in this series. Of course, you see his defined chest, abs, V-cut, and budding forearms, but you also see his very strong calves and huge feet. What the Speedo represents is confidence, the need for attention, freedom/liberation, shows off his male perfection of his body, and shows that he is stylish while caring about his looks, since Speedos also minimize tan lines. Overall, everything about Alejandro's appearance represents oozing masculinity and something that men should inspire to be like, quote-unquote. He is a toxic person who chooses to be toxic and refuses to learn to not be toxic in order for him to find his purpose and happiness, as we will see throughout the video, despite his appearance. The first trait that stood out to me about his masculinity is his oozing charm and charisma. Despite showing his A double dollar signs on the TDA special where everyone is introduced to him, he instantly makes a good impression on the first episode, as he charms several people, mainly Lindsay and Bridget. He continues to charm several ladies throughout the season, and many of these ladies are taken women or have previously shown to be tough competitors who see through BS. He is able to convince Harold to quit just by having a quick conversation with him about loyalty, honor, and trying to impress Lashana. The two weren't even close when Alejandro did this. I remember him making Chef Hatchet blush just because he complimented Chef on his flying skills, and Chef was a giggling fool. This had no strategic purpose whatsoever, but it was to show that he can make even tough people charmed by him. Even in All-Stars, he was able to make Gwen swoon early on when she was one of the few women who were never in awe by him in World Tour, and knowing about how he is. The second trait of his that exhibits masculinity is his very sexual gravitational pull that he has on other people. Alejandro's first strategy is to use flirting to get people on his side, and his first example is flirting with Lindsay and Bridget in the first episode. He decides to leave Lindsay alone, as he mainly flirts with Lashana and Bridget throughout the first several episodes, so he can cause them to self-destruct and get them sent home. He tricks Bridget into thinking she will kiss him, so she gets stuck to a pole and told Lashana to seize the day. He didn't care if they had significant others, as he knew that his aggressive sexualization will get him what he wants. Alejandro knows that he has a great body and takes off his shirt to show it off and to make women swoon over him. Sometimes he takes off his shirt for absolutely no reason, and girls like Heather and Courtney still swoon over him. Alejandro sometimes ties his hair into a ponytail, and it's a tool used for the other women to ogle at him. He decides to flirt with Courtney after she breaks up with Duncan, and uses this as a way not only to throw her off, but to make Heather jealous. It is also revealed in All Stars that him and Courtney had a kiss off camera. He was revered to as a handsome jerk several times from several people throughout All Stars. The third trait I have for Alejandro and his masculinity is his obsession with control. Alejandro claims in his biography that he controls his dreams, claiming that he cannot have crazy dreams due to this. He also claims in his biography that he never gets embarrassed. Of course, we know that he is full of ish, since it's not only not realistic, but we see him fail at this throughout his time on the show. He says that being a son of a diplomat, you learn how to tell people what they want to hear, say things at the right time to get what they want, and to make others feel comfortable. Alejandro's last name is Burromuerto, which means dead donkey, causing him to lose his mind when it's used against him in All Stars, which is the same as when he's called Al by several other contestants, while they initially didn't know that his brother Jose called it to tease him. His mother is mentioned several times throughout the show, all under the context of her teaching him how to be a gentleman, and seemingly giving him a lot of affection. He uses this as a way to control his actions of what he should be, especially in the beginning of his journey. Another trait of his that exemplifies masculinity is he is very ambitious. His dream in his biography was to gain interest from his lucrative investments that he would have won from the show, as a vision for himself 10 years after the show. Alejandro is very smart, as his IQ is revealed to be at 163, speaks 3 different languages in English, Spanish, and Japanese. His family ties also causes him to learn a wide range of skills, from his father's diplomacy, his uncle's hypnotism, and his oldest brother Carlos being a soccer player. Alejandro shows great athleticism and flexibility throughout both of his seasons, as he's able to do the splits, uses his legs to tie his hair, do a bunch of flips, bends, and is able to walk on his hands. He was born in Spain, though references a lot of South America regarding his culture, so I believe that culturally, I presume Alejandro's background is South American, so like Peruvian or Colombian, based off of the references he makes, though he might have been born in Spain just for whatever reason. But I do believe, biologically, he is from South America. So, Alejandro is very cutthroat and manipulative. He sees his best trait as exploiting another person's weaknesses in seconds, and learned this from a young age due to going through a bunch of nannies by doing this, and was able to convince his school bus driver as a child to give over the keys, which is according to his biography. Alejandro mentions in episode 15 that his family is full of manipulators, which explains his upbringing and why he feels the need to be on his toes and on edge about everything. He goes out of his way to befriend, flirt with, and align with people, only to cut them soon after, and has much joy in playing with the cast throughout his entire time on the show. I remember him making DJ have a placebo with the Egyptian symboled fish that he created for DJ to make him think he was cured, and after sabotaging DJ's obstacle course, he had a big laugh of DJ getting sent home. His entire shtick of pretending to still be injured and his legs not working in All-Stars was done to manipulate the others, mainly Heather, into thinking he was weaker than he really was, and so he could gain control over Heather, which is also shown as they fight over Gwen in the 3rd episode, and he outright mentions this. There is also him stealing Heather's immunity idol in All-Stars in the 6th episode, which technically should not have been allowed by Survivor rules, but he takes it and uses the idol to send her home in the same episode. Another trait that exemplifies his typical masculinity in my eyes is that he is very cultured. Alejandro is in love with his Hispanic nature and heritage and embraces it several times. He speaks his first language when he is generally pissed off, and a lot of his natural characteristics and mannerisms play up to his heritage and culture. His theme music throughout the show involves traditional Spanish music. Not only is he very cultured in his Spanish culture, but in others as well, due to his father being a diplomat. Of course, it meant that he had to learn about other cultures, and it causes him to have more knowledge and to be more superior to others in this regard. He also mentions knowing Japanese in the 3rd episode due to this, showing that he's a bit more cultured in that as well. The final personality trait of his that aligns with general masculinity is him being very fiery/aggressive. His favorite color is red, and he loves spicy food. We all know that red symbolizes passion, anger, wrath, fury. With this color and his favorite food definitely plays up to the fact that Alejandro is fiery and has a lot of fury within him. Alejandro not only mentioned that he likes bulls, which are seen as one of the most aggressive animals ever, but mentions in the 3rd episode that he wants to be a lion tamer, which is another aggressive animal and another example of him wanting to be aggressive and to be in control. He spews a lot of venom in his confessionals when he reveals his hostility, anger issues, and pure sheer hatred. The confessionals are where people can be their true selves, and he's shown to be a hostile, vile, aggressive, angry person. In his first confessional, during the action special, he tells the drama nerds that the new guy is going to take over, and he has a lot of venom saying it, which is weird since he didn't know any of them at this point. Even during the action special, Alejandro outright walks over Cody, and this is the first time we are introduced to him. He is also a part of the new villains pilot during this time. Alejandro takes out a lot of his anger on Owen, as we see him aggressively hit Owen with the carriage in the New York episode, and kicks him out of the plane when Owen is eliminated. He also enjoys that bug caterpillar animals attack Owen during the Amazon episode. He also takes much joy in hitting Cody off the platform in the finale. And of course there is the moment where he beats up his brother in episode 7 of All-Stars, which is used as a vindicating moment for him after all the abuse Jose put him through. So now it's time for me to talk about traits that aren't traditionally or stereotypically masculine, as they tend to conflict with that, or are outright feminine traits. So the first one is obviously that he's extremely vain and obsessed with his looks. Alejandro knows that he's very good looking and loves to show it off whenever he can. He knows the effect that his looks has on people, which he uses to his advantage. I feel like he became even more obsessed with his looks during All-Stars, which I guess would make sense since they were altered after the event of the World Tour finale. While fighting his brother Jose, they both brag about never hitting one another in the face in their confessionals, showing that it's way too valuable in looks to be harmed, causing the both of them to take body shots at one another only. Within the same season, he has an emotional goodbye with one of his boots in the 9th episode, once it gets stuck between a few rocks in the 9th episode, which is just honestly kind of lame about it with how attached he was to it. When he is eliminated in that season, he literally says the same lines that Justin does when the latter was eliminated in action. That the show got 100% less beautiful now that he was eliminated. Take notes that most of the vanity and obsession with his looks took place in All-Stars after his disfigurement. I feel like after his act and persona that he created in World Tour diminished, he became almost like a clone of Justin. Underneath the surface that he created for himself, Alejandro is very emotionally unstable. Alejandro literally put on a cool face, but he starts to curse in Spanish when he really pissed, and you see how unstable he is when dealing with Team Chris's really hot throughout the entire World Tour season. He twitches when the nickname Al comes up, due to it being used against him by his superior brother, and whenever he deals with Owen, he cannot control himself whatsoever. As World Tour goes on, his choices become a lot less strategic and a lot more emotional, which he knows about, but he tries to deny and gets very sloppy overall. His facade is completely broken, and once he reveals his true self, he becomes a lot less focused. We see his emotions take over in the finale, and it causes his downfall. Throughout the All-Stars, he made emotional move after emotional move. He pretended he wasn't able to walk because he wanted to guilt Heather, not for any strategic purpose. He decides to target and idol her, which does absolutely nothing for his game, when he could have idoled anyone else, and put himself in a better position. He outright tells everyone in the merge that he does not need allies, when the previous him knew that he needed to work with people to advance in the game. Alejandro's last trait in this regard is that he has an inferiority complex. We see that he has an unusual venom against the Total Drama cast when we first see him appear, and it's odd. Even for some antagonists, there isn't this much vitriol from them in the very beginning, when there are no attachments to anyone else. To me, it seems like he was like this because Alejandro wanted to make a mark and wanted to make a statement. But why? Of course, we learn that he comes from a very manipulative but educated and widely skilled family. We know that his more superior brother, Jose, picked on him for years, contributing to him feeling inferior, his need for control, and his emotional unstableness. Instead of handling his insecurity in a healthy way, he creates this persona for himself as this perfect being, and feels the need to put several others down to make himself feel better, since he feels unfulfilled and low in his home life. Alejandro was raised in a competitive environment, which fueled his inferiority issues, but he doesn't care to learn how to deal with it, and his inferiority shows a lack of true confidence. In conclusion, Alejandro has a lot of traits that represent not only stereotypical masculinity, but typical general masculinity. He has an alpha-esque to him with his charm, intelligence, varied skills, athleticism, ambition, drive, his attractiveness, and being a physical specimen. I believe Alejandro was designed to be the most generally masculine person from the cast, especially within the first generation cast, but they wanted to use his masculinity as a way for him to become a villain. His journey throughout the season was for him to be the standard, and you could see him as the standard of masculinity, but as the season goes on, that is unveiled and cracked more and more. He returned in All-Stars, where a lot of his traits are still there, but there's an insecurity, fragileness that is apparent throughout the season, and his confidence was not as strong, and he was more obsessed with his appearance. His strategy went completely out the window as he became more and more emotional throughout the franchise, with most of that being related to his relationship with Heather. When looking at the Burromuerto family, he is the youngest of 3 boys, and it's made clear that the other 2 brothers are a lot more accomplished than Alejandro is, making it seem like Alejandro is the black sheep in his family. With someone of his talent caliber, you wouldn't expect him to be seen as a black sheep, but he comes from a very cunning, manipulative, ambitious, and cultured family, so he doesn't seem as impressive. It is noted that he mentions his mother teaching him a lot and loving him, but the only reference to his father is about the latter being a diplomat. Nothing about their bond or anything, so I'm assuming that they were relatively distant. Jose beats him in everything, according to Alejandro, so I wouldn't be shocked if that involved his parents' affection. Being tortured causes Alejandro to build even more of an inferiority complex, and tends to take it out on the people that doesn't deserve it, like the other TDWT contestants. Alejandro is selfish to his core, and instead of dealing with his emotions properly, he either puts on an act or lashes out in anger, as that's the only emotion that men are apparently allowed to show. It seems like the only emotion he shows when he's not putting on an act or when he's cocky is sheer anger and fury. Entering All-Stars, his main focus was getting revenge on Heather instead of playing the game, and neither one of them actually spoke about their issues about what happened in the prior season, but they continued to play unhealthy mind games with one another. After he gets Heather out and defeats his brother, Alejandro's arrogance comes back, which only further alienates him from the cast, who are disgusted by his actual personality and actions. But when the tides turn against him, they see him as the boy who cried wolf and has a relatively humiliating exit. Actually, it's stated that his vote off is the quickest vote off in Total Drama history up to that point. When he appears in the finale, you would think that he would learn from being selfish, cunning, and manipulative, as well as his exit, as he seems happy with Heather. But we see that he would choose money over his relationship in the same episode. Him and Heather do not have a healthy relationship, and I don't foresee it becoming healthier outside of the game, as neither one of them really learned the lesson about valuing each other and love over money and opportunity. He plays up the Latin lover trope to his advantage, and while he seemingly likes being that, it also shows that he knows what people expect of him, so he delivers on it. Alejandro flirts with several women throughout his time on the show, and uses it to humiliate them as they are sent home, and doesn't care about the emotional feelings of them or anyone else he deals with, or the people they're in relationships with. It also kind of shows a more misogynistic side towards him, as he is given props for doing this by people like Owen and Duncan in the middle of the season. Instead of just being a nice, talented, well-respected guy throughout the season, where he most likely would have done just as well, he took the dark side of things and used that approach and chooses to do so again and again and again, even in his final appearance on the show. Despite his talents, good looks, and seemingly bright future, Alejandro feels like he lacks agency, identity, and he has something to prove. So he will continue to choose opportunity and vanity to fulfill these shallow accomplishments and fulfillment. But it will ultimately be fruitless. Alejandro is very masculine and does embrace some of his few feminine traits, but does so in a toxic way and is not one anyone should aspire to be like. In conclusion, Alejandro is a toxic person who chooses to be toxic and refuses to learn how not to be toxic in order for him to find his purpose and happiness. So honestly, I do think he represents toxic masculinity.